we're going to be having an interview coming up pretty soon with a fellow named Scott Carpenter. Scott Carpenter is very, very good with his manuscripts and his readings and such. He has a lot of information just stored in his head. He can just talk, just off the top of his head on just about any textual variant, it seems, any of the ones that I've thrown at him anyways. And, he'll be running and gunning or whatever, and he'll just, start, rattling off stuff, and it's just like, how do you even know all this? And it's fun because it seems like, and I run most of these things past him, like, a really weird, like, minority text variants, like, what was the one from Revelation 21 that I threw at him the other day? I forget which verse it was, but, Revelation 14:1 would be a good example, where it says his name and his father's name in the just about every Bible in history, and the Textus Receptus King James Bible, and I think 3 other manuscripts say just his father's name, and of course Gail Ripplinger roasts them alive for that. But James White has always said that there is one manuscript that has that does not have his name "and" in it, and that was like, oh wow, that's impressive. If the King James Bible has added, or not added, actually taken away 3 words from Revelation, that's quite significant. But I ran it past Scott, and he's like, actually there's 2 other manuscripts or what have you that James didn't actually mention, but but what he says is basically the case. So yeah, he's got a lot of knowledge on this stuff, and right now the hopes, the prayers, is that we'll be going, I'm not sure if we're going to do it live yet or not, but I do definitely want to get recorded an interview with him. We're planning for May 28th. That's what he suggested to me, and I was like, oh, perfect. So went to add it to my calendar, and it was perfect. It was it's the anniversary of the publication date of the 100% perfect King James Bible in 1850, according to Peter Ruckman. So that's, I guess, kind of an appropriate recording date for, and actually in the interview, what we're wanting to talk about, what I want to talk about, I don't want to criticize the King James Bible. I don't want to say, oh, look, it's full of errors, you shouldn't use it, stuff like this. However, it seems like, and I want to open this up for public discussion so that, people like Nick Sayers and Mike and Mike, Ferrando and Holner, Jeff Riddle, now there's the Truth is Christ podcast, all these guys, so that they can take a look at these things and be like, well, actually this and this and this. So I want to actually get this stuff out, and what I'm planning right now to title it is something like the top 10 verses or top 10 things that the King James Bible added or deleted. And these are going to be different things like Revelation 14:1, where every Bible in all of history, including, and I looked it up, the Wycliffe Bible from 1382, it has, in Revelation 14:1, his name and his father's name. And of course, Gail could not let that go. She made it basically that, oh, well, you see, your feet are firmly planted on the ground, like she says in different talks that she gives. This makes it seem like, your feet are firmly planted on the ground, and you're supposed to receive the name of the Lamb, his name and his Father's name. Who is this talking about? This is obviously talking about the Antichrist and Satan putting their names on people's foreheads. I don't believe this. This is terrible. And she writes a whole section about this in her book, New Age Bible Versions. It's in the chapter called his Mark and Masquerade, I believe it was called. And yeah, she makes a huge deal about it. But like it turns out, every single Bible and all of history apparently has been teaching Christians to take the mark of the beast. Apparently. Oh, nope. Not have those 3 words in it. Leave them out. He is advocating for the majority text because it hardly. Oh, the majority are teaching the Antichrist. So we can safely leave out those words. Problem is we can explain exactly if sound buffering is suffering. Let me see. That might help, I'm not sure. It may. So, it looks like right now to me that, yeah, Gail and a lot of people that have gotten behind what she said, and a lot of King James only people, may just be eating a lot of crow pretty soon. And James White really pressed the issue with that one verse in Revelation that, what was it? I want to say it was in Revelation 21, but I don't remember what the verse was or what the wording was, but he really, really pressed it in the, all right, the audio's working, very good, because that is the most important thing about this stuff, is audio. He really, he really tried pinning Levesque to the wall. Levesque is how you spell his last name, but Doug Levesque, when in his recent debate, I think this past month, I believe, it was very, very good. And of course, trying to pin Doug to the wall on something where he actually is required to give some kind of concrete something is like trying to nail Jello to the wall. And it just, and he did, fascinating, he did say that when James was trying to pin him on this one variant, where apparently the one manuscript that, what James claims, the one manuscript that Erasmus would have had for Revelation, the one with the commentary in the text, where he, what did he do? He put in a couple of words. Oh man, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this, but I am. But he really tried nailing Doug to the wall, and he was like, he actually admitted, this Doug Levesque person, who I have never heard of outside of the this debate, part of the King James Bible Research Council, said that, oh, well, he never said that it was perfect. Oh, okay, got it. So you're part of the King James Bible Research Council. Why? Isn't it supposed to be because you're King James only, and only the King James gets these things right, and the King James Bible's God's preserved word 100% all the time? And you just said you didn't say it was perfect? What on earth? So, all right, well, yeah, okay. So Dan Heafley gets asked to step down from the King James Bible Research Council because of his debate with Mark Ward. I guess it's only a matter of time, probably, at least in my opinion, that Doug Levesque is asked to step down because of his debate with James White, where he completely and utterly failed. And yeah, I guess as the King James Bible Research Council keeps throwing their members at debates, they're just going to keep losing members, and pretty soon they're going to be through all 8 of them, and it's going to be over, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with that. I did actually get to talk to Dan Hafley just recently. We had a brief exchange about some of the research that Bryan Ross is doing. We're both Bryan Ross's friends, and we talk to him quite frequently. And we do, for those of you that don't know, we had an interview with Bryan Ross that we did a couple Sundays ago, bright and early. It was scheduled for 4:30, and we ended up getting on around 5 because of a communications issue. But that interview is going to air on Saturday, April 19th, so the day before Easter. And we did watch, and I was very favorably impressed by the Truth is Christ podcast episode on the whole question about Easter. It was number 2 of their podcast series. Brandon did a very good job in defending what he thought. Lotan also did a very good job, I think. I would love to see the historical notes that he gave, but it seemed like the only reason that he gave historical notes was to try to connect Anglo-Saxon Christian tradition to Alexandria, Egypt, which apparently would have won him some kind of point, which is not actually true. It would have earned him some Ruckmanite points, but that's probably about it. But I would love to see his main challenge about the Days of Unleavened Bread never being referred to as the Passover, maybe separately, but it seems like the entire Feast of Unleavened Bread was referred to as the Passover, the entire thing, and then the Days of Unleavened Bread were called the Days of Unleavened Bread in the passage. So I mean, I personally think that Lotan's argument falls apart pretty quickly when you look at it critically. But me and, Bryan Ross and I are planning to do a video about it as we're gonna, take some time, look at it closely, do some more research, do more close consideration to what was actually said, rather than, making generalities and such like this, because I think it's important to do in this kind of discussion. So I might even be able to connect with Lotan about it. We'll have to see. I don't know. That would be really nice. Hey, Lotan, if you're watching this, hit me up on Messenger or talk to Brandon. He's got my phone number. But anywho, or you can email me, BibleVersionConspiracy@gmail.com. So we're planning to make a video about that. Probably, we're intending after Easter to bring it forth to the people. But it's probably not going to happen for some time. Both me and Bryan have a lot of things going on, a lot of things on our plates. And, yeah, it's probably going to take a little bit before we can treat it the way that we want to. But when we do, we want to treat it the way that it should be treated, and not just have a knee-jerk reaction and miss stuff or come off half-baked or what have you. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Oh, what else? I already mentioned the Gail Ripplinger thing. Oh, this is interesting. So there is a slight possibility that Gail Ripplinger covered up incest. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, okay, so I'll tell you the story. So, Gail has constantly quoted Virginia Mollenkott, and many other people have quoted her exactly the same way, so don't get me wrong. Virginia Mollenkott said, and no ellipsis marks, the beginning of the quotation, says, I could no longer worship I could no longer worship in a religious context where God is portrayed as the abusive father or the abusive parent, and Christ the obedient, trusting child. And this is, of course, referring to the crucifixion. Now, everybody has an absolute bird about that quotation, just like everybody has an absolute bird about Mark Ward saying that it's a sin to give a King James Bible to a child, way out of context, and takes this statement without any kind of consideration to the nuance of the discussion. Very irresponsible. But everybody has an absolute bird where Virginia Mollenkott says that about the crucifixion and about Jesus Christ. Problem is that most of the people, David Cloud and a lot of the other sources online that actually quote this quotation from Virginia Mollenkott, which I believe was from some kind of Rethinking Christianity conference or something like this, they usually include the first part of that quotation, which says, as an incest survivor, I can no longer worship in a religious context that portrays God as the abusive parent and Christ as the obedient, trusting child. Taken that way, and in the religious context that I believe she may have been referring to, I have not seen the context yet because I cannot find the source, the original source for that citation yet. I certainly cannot find Gail Riplinger's citation for it, which is supposed to be in some sort of magazine called Christian American from February of 1994, I want to say, so it wouldn't have even been in her first printing. But I really want to know what that article said, because I've only found one other person who obviously was not quoting from Gail Riplinger, obviously. I've seen one other person not include the first part of that quotation and quote it the way that Gail does. So leaving off that part, that front part that says an incest survivor, that tells me that what she's referring to is her experience in the Plymouth Brethren, where she could no longer see Christ and God the way that kind of fundamental perspective wanted him to be seen, as the obedient, trusting child, and God as the abusive parent. Now, this is the thing too, that if you leave out those first few words of that quotation, there are a lot of abusive situations in Christianity, especially in America. In America, actually, religious programming that focuses around the Bible and Christian thought, that kind of programming is what is popular and common in America. So, sorry, just gotta check the mail. When you have that kind of programming going on, you have, a lot of the time, you have people being like, oh, Christ suffered to, to save the world, and you're here to save the world too. You're special. You're here to do something special for God. And then basically the way it turns out is, I'm God, and you're about to suffer violation, basically. So, yeah. And if you guys want to check any of that kind of stuff, and like I said, I think I mentioned this recently, you're going to want to read the Trance-formation of America by Cathy O'Brien. She talks about it a lot in there. I'm actually going to park closer to the house. And that Christian aspect of programming stuff I think is very important. Yeah, if got the max amount of people here for the stream right now. I don't plan on going much longer. I've got some popsicles to get inside in the freezer. But I want to say this. given the fact that there is so much abuse and programming and all this kind of stuff, that Virginia Mollenkott actually had a hand, a very small hand, in actually talking about. And one of the things that actually drove her to lesbianism was the incest that she experienced as a child. So before you guys all start saying, oh yeah, Virginia Mollenkott was an evil New Ager and she was on the NIV committee. She wasn't. She was a stylistic consultant, and she wasn't that way until well after her involvement with that translation ceased. So when Gail Ripplinger says, oh, look at this book that she wrote in 1992. Oh, well, that's only 20 years after the NIV was published. Thanks, Gail, for telling us about the NIV's Mollenkott, or Mollenkott's of the NIV, or whatever. Absolute total bunk. And then trying to say that, it's just, Gail's claims are just so disgusting. But anyways, I will say right now, 100% categorically and without question, without reservation in my mind, without any kind of second thought. And I just drove 5 of the viewers away because, of course, they're not ready to handle this kind of stuff, I guess. King James onlyism needs to die. If people are being programmed using the King James Bible, and if the reason that King James onlyism exists is to keep one translation being used in so many churches, because the programming of these children like Cathy O'Brien is hinged on the exact verbatim wording of the King James Bible. You guys have seen Captain America and the Winter Soldier, right? Where the Nazi guy or whatever just reads off this list of seemingly unrelated words. There are a lot of people who are programmed exactly that way. And I do not know if that is the standard, or if there are specifically worded Bible verses that unlock personalities inside of these programmed people. Specifically worded Bible passages that appear only so specifically worded in the King James Bible. If that's the reason why King James onlyism is pushed so heavily, and why it is believed so firmly, especially in fundamentalism, and why it has been pushed, and just like I said, and if that's the reason why King James onlyism exists, is to try to keep this one translation and its wording standard, so that things can keep operating the way that they have been. And only the King James Bible, and I would never change a word of it. Well, you know what? If you did end up changing a word of it, I wonder whose programming you'd end up messing up. I wonder if a word of it was even changed to something that is a direct, literal synonym. Even then, the programming for an individual that's programmed to that passage or that verse or whatever, even then the programming is broken. It has to be exactly the same words. There's a lot to think about, a lot to consider, a lot of conspiracy theorizing to think about and such, and a lot of people that need to come forward and talk and start answering questions. But if that's why King James onlyism exists, King James onlyism needs to die, and it needs to die as quickly as possible. The future of our country, the future of our children, and the demise of evil depends upon it, if what I just said is the case. Like I said, I've got to get inside. Popsicles are melting. Got things to do. But there's some things for you guys to chew on, I guess. And we'll be seeing you Friday night, 9 or 10, around that time. And we'll be doing a live stream about probably one of the subjects that we've just discussed. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about, but I've got to get a nailed down schedule for it. I planned out if you may not believe this, but I planned out my first 3 or 4 months in advance. And since then, I haven't planned ahead. It's been basically week by week. I've really got to nail something down. And so far, it looks like our vision is to find a list of 100 rock-solid evidences that there is a conspiracy behind the modern Bible translation controversy. And right now, I would say that we're at about maybe 5. And we're going to keep evaluating the evidences that others have given to prove exactly the same thing, especially Gail Ripplinger, who has given a lot of such evidences, and finding out whether or not they are rock solid. If you guys want to contribute to making that master list, please send me your conspiracies and your evidence and such. And if you want to help us be able to look for them full time, then you guys can join us on a much deeper level at our Buy Me a Coffee page, buymeacoffee.com/Joseph Armstrong, links in the description. And I'll see you guys next time. Read your King James Bible like the devil's after it, because he is, and there truly is, a Bible version conspiracy.